Hey everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm glad you're here and I'm glad to be here. Today is yeast roll day. I'm going to show you how to make the easiest bread in the world. It doesn't require a whole lot of fiddling with. You don't have to knead it a whole lot. It's just time intensive because you have to let it rise a couple of times actually. And then you have to roll it out and cut it and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it is a process, but it's a process that is well worth the time and the effort to do it. Because when you know how to make good bread, you're onto something. Because baking is an art form. I think so anyway, because, I struggled to learn how to do it. But once you learn the specifics and the basics, then you can just add on and go in lots of different directions with your baking, and you'd be amazed at all the things you can make. I love to bake around the holidays because you can bake things and give them as gifts. People love that kind of thing, y'all. I'm not even kidding. It's much better than going to the store and buying something, that's already pre-made and giving it to somebody. They appreciate things like this a lot more, these kind of gifts, when you make them from scratch. That's what I feel anyway. The yeast rolls that I'm going to show you how to make, I learned how to make them a long time ago. My first job was in a restaurant in Dahlonega, Georgia. It was called the Smith House, and it was famous for boarding style / family style dining. And we served a ton of people. And my first job there was working in the dining room, bussing tables. Over the years, I worked my way up and I wound up in the bakery where I learned how to make yeast rolls, I learned how to make cornbread, I learned how to make cinnamon rolls. So I was well versed in baking arts by the time I got out of the bakery at the Smith House. I learned how to make these from a couple of very, very nice people. They were good bakers, they were good people, and they put up with me, which says a lot. Mr. Ed, he was quite a character. I spent a lot of time just laughing because he always made me laugh. He just had all kinds of funny stories. And then the other person who I learned a whole lot from, a lady named Estelle Patterson. She was splendid. She was so nice. She was always so sweet to me and so patient. If I was doing something wrong, she would just stand there and she'd say, "You might want to think about that." And I did. I ended up thinking a whole lot about what she was showing me. And those lessons paid off because I turned into a pretty good baker. I was sad to hear that Estelle passed away last week. And so that's kind of a part of my childhood / young adulthood that's gone. But it's living on because I still know how to make these rolls that she taught me how to do. And so I'm dedicating this episode of Smith House Yeast Rolls to my dear, sweet, departed friend, Estelle Patterson. And I hope she's proud of me, and I hope that she's glad that I'm keeping the tradition going. So let's dive in. Now listen, it's not hard. It's really not hard. But it is, you have to be willing to set aside some time, and you really have to put in the work. So put in the work, roll up your sleeves. Working with yeast, you have to be temperature conscious. I like to bloom my yeast at around 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, blooming yeast simply means that I'm going to hydrate it with warm water so that the little yeast creatures can start waking up. It's like they've been asleep because I don't know if they're freeze-dried or what, but yeast is in dry form, little tiny pellets. And when you hydrate it with water, it gives the yeast microbes the opportunity to wake up. And they're going to start expelling carbon dioxide, and they're going to start making bubbles, and they're going to start feeding on any kind of sugar that's available, because that's what they do. They eat sugar, they expel carbon dioxide, and they make your bread poof and rise. So, enough science. We're going to get started with this. Now, earlier today, I mixed up my yeast dough because, like I said, it does take time. I bloomed my yeast. Take my rings off there. I bloomed my yeast, and then I proceeded to mix up all the wet and dry ingredients. So I've let this sit for about 10 minutes. It doesn't look like much has happened in there, but I have been watching. The yeast is starting to activate and it's starting to let off little air bubbles. Carbon dioxide is basically what it's getting rid of. And those little air bubbles come to the top and it actually makes it look like the yeast is alive and moving. Well, the yeast is alive, but you can't really see it moving. What you're seeing is the expulsion of the carbon dioxide. So that's what makes it look like it's moving around. But anyway, this is pretty much ready to go into the mixing bowl. So now it's just a matter of adding all our ingredients to the bowl. So I'm going to go in with my yeast water mixture. Then my milk's going in next. I did warm my milk up a little bit because if you start out with a warm liquid base, your bread dough is going to rise quicker. This is 2 full cups of vegetable oil. Now you can use canola, you can use peanut, you can use whatever, but this is just a regular generic vegetable oil. Going in with 3 eggs, so just crack them straight in. And 3. Now I'm going in with, this is 3 tablespoons of regular granulated sugar, straight in. And this is 1 tablespoon of salt. And you need the salt in bread because it keeps it from tasting flat. If you leave the salt out, well, your rolls aren't going to be fit to eat. Just saying. Boom, straight in. Now this recipe calls for plain all-purpose flour. You can use bread flour if you want to, but I don't think it's really necessary because plain all-purpose works just fine. So I'm going in to begin with 4 cups of flour. I know I'm going to need more, but I'll start off with 4. Then I'll put my blade on and I'll mix to incorporate all the ingredients. And it's still really liquid, and so that just tells me that it's ready for some more flour. So we're adding 2 more cups for a total of 6. One more time with the mixer. Now, it is really starting to come together nicely, but it is still a lot wetter than it should be for workable dough. So we're going in with another 2 cups. Oops, making a mess. I'm good at that. And now the dough is coming together, starting to form solid rather than a gooey liquid mass. We're still not quite there with the flour, so we're going to add just a little bit more. And hopefully we can consider the flour a done deal. So that's 1 cup, and we'll see how she looks there. So that's going to be 9 cups of flour at this point. Woo. Everywhere, everywhere. And it does look great at this point. It's coming together nicely and it's sticking to the sides and pulling away just like a good bread dough should. And it smells real good too. I'm going to scrape it down so that I can get a look at it and feel is what I really need to do, because bread is one of those things where the more you feel of it and the more familiar you get with how it's supposed to feel, then you'll know what kind of product you're going to end up with. I like the feel of this dough at this point with the 9 cups of flour. So I'm turning it back on and I'm going to let it mix for about 2 minutes. 1 more cup of flour. Now listen, I don't use my dough hook for this dough because this is a soft dough. It's not a dough that you actually need a dough hook for. Because you're not working the food out of it to create texture. This is a soft dough. It has considerable amount of fat in it from the oil. And we're looking for soft dough. We're looking for soft bread. We're not looking for something that's chewy or at all hard and crusty. This is going to be a fabulous yeast roll. And we are well on our way. So, that is going to be the perfect amount of flour, 10 cups of plain all-purpose. And I can tell because the more you work with bread, the more you understand the nature of the beast. And I've got considerable experience, so I know what my dough is supposed to look like. So, I'm going to let it go for another minute or so and consider it a done deal. This dough has been mixing for an additional 2 minutes, and it is perfect. It is soft and pillowy, and it pulls away just right. And I'm excited because this bread is going to be magnificent. So, take my dough beater off, and I make a lot of mess with it. I actually need an 8-quart mixer for this monster. There we go. And you just take off as much of the dough as you can. And if you leave some on, whatevs. It's good. So, take it off the stand. And then I pull this dough away from the sides, just like this. And I'm not going to transfer it to another bowl. I'm going to leave it in this mixing bowl to rise, because it's a pretty good size bowl, and I'm not expecting to triple it in size. I'm just expecting it to go double in size. And this bowl's perfect. So I'm going to take a little oil and go around the side of my dish here. And I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to stick it in a warm place and let it rise for 1 hour. So this dough that's been mixed up and sitting in a warm place out of a draft, it's been covered up, it has risen considerably, and I'm pleased with this. It hasn't risen quite double in size, but it has risen enough that I'll be able to get on with the process of making this bread and get it in the pans, because this is plenty of rise. If it had risen up high like this, well, that would have been just a hot mess, and we don't want a hot mess. We just want it to be risen enough. So this took about 1.5 hours for it to get this volume. So I'm just going to knock it down a little bit with my spatula, bust out some of those bubbles. And you see how far down it goes? I'm letting loose some of that air, the trapped air. This also is a good indicator that your yeast is definitely alive and well, and it's perking along, and it's making those air bubbles. It's going to keep our bread nice and soft inside. So that's what we want. So I'm going to set this over here. This is going to be my work surface. I'm going to get a little bit of flour, And I'm going to pretty generously coat this area with flour, because while I did incorporate 10 cups of flour into my dough, you still have to have a little bit more to coat it so that you can handle it and roll it out, because that's what we want. So I am going to take my dough here, going in with my hand. Make sure you clean your hand. And I'm just pinching it as I go, and I'm grabbing it just like that. And look, ta-da! So I'm just gonna powder up my fingers here, get a little extra flour on my hands, and I'm just gonna start kind of pressing and pulling and tucking, pulling and tucking, pulling and tucking and rolling. It is not a hard process. You just have to be mindful of the dough. Now, there were many times when I was learning how to make this that Ed Anderson would slap my hand and he'd say, "You're being too rough. You have to be gentle with it," because, well, it is a living organism. The little yeast microbes are in there. But it's also, well, it's just not going to handle rough treatment. You don't need to handle this bread roughly. There are some breads, like some sourdoughs, that can handle the rough treatment. But this one, it's not necessary, so just settle down. Now I have got just enough flour incorporated so that it's not sticky. My hand bounces right off of it when I touch it. I can do that, and it just bounces back and leaves just the slightest impression. So that tells me that this is ready to go. So I've got my trusty, get my hair out of my face, my trusty rolling pin, put a little more flour on it, and then I'm just going to start rolling and pulling, rolling and pulling. I'm not going to get this very thin because we want nice, big, fat, puffy yeast rolls. And so I'm going to leave it over a ½ inch tall, because, well, that's going to make nice size rolls. You can see that it has spread out beautifully. It is not sticky at all. It's perfect. Now I'm using this as my cutter. You can use whatever you want. You can use a biscuit cutter, you can use a cookie cutter, you can use a glass like what you would drink iced tea with. Anything that kind of has a hole in the top that lets the air out so that you can actually cut. So now I'm just going to go like this, and I'm going to cut down and down. See? And I'm not really twisting, but I am going down because I want these to be cut out and separated from each other. Boom, boom, boom. Look at that, it's perfect. Now I'm going to I cut some parchment paper out earlier, and I'm going to do a few of these individual tin pans. Now I want to spray it, even though I have parchment paper, I sprayed the sides because I want it to come out easy. I don't want it to be a pain in the butt trying to get this bread out of the thing. So, simply going to go at it like this, pick it up, and start putting it in the pan. I'm not going to let them touch because I want them to spread out. And I'm going to put, let's see how many I can get in here. I'm going to get 6 in this pan. So that's 6 rolls, just like that, spread out. And I'm going to continue to do that until I've filled up several pans. So hide and watch. So that first little rollout got me these 3 pans. I'm going to be able to do that 2 more times. And that's perfect because this will either allow me to put some of these in the freezer, because if I wanted to pre-make these, like if I was making these for Thanksgiving and I didn't have time at Thanksgiving, but I had time the week before Thanksgiving, I could make these rolls. And when I get to this point where I have them in the pan, I could wrap them up in plastic wrap and then, I don't know, make sure that put them in a Ziploc bag or something, and then you could stick these in the freezer. And the morning of the day that you're wanting to serve them, just pull them out that morning and let them thaw out and let them rise for, I don't know, it might take 6 or 7 hours, but by that evening, they're going to be ready to go in the oven, and people are going to think that you had all the time in the world to make fresh bread. I love to impress people, so keep that under your hat. I'm going to show you something that you can do as a variation. Now remember, I'm all about deviating from the path. Start out with a good base, and then you can go in different directions. Well, that applies to this bread too. Let me show you what we're going to do. I'm going to get this dough right here, and I'm going to show you what can be done with it. And it's awesome. So I've got it spread out just like this. Now watch what I'm going to do. I have got some savory seasonings that I'm going to add to this bowl. Unscrew all these lids. Now I have got a little bit of Greek seasoning that is a mixture of, well, it's got oregano and thyme, it's got some red pepper flake, it's got a little basil, it's got roasted garlic and sea salt. So that's a lovely blend. So I'm going to take about a teaspoon of this blend, and I'm going to put it in a little bowl right here. And then I'm going to take some of my onion powder, about a teaspoon. Take a little bit of garlic powder, that's another teaspoon. And I'm just going to stir this together and make this lovely little seasoning mix. And then, I'm going to take some olive oil. I'm just going to make a little trail just in the center like that. And then I'm going to spread this stuff out, because we can make a seasoned bread. Just because it's a yeast roll doesn't mean it has to be plain necessarily. You can jazz it up and you can make it whatever you want, which I like. I like that idea. So look, I am just going at this and I'm sprinkling this around, and I'm being pretty generous with it because that's quite a hunk of dough. Then we're going to mix it up. So watch this. Folding it in, and it's just going to come together beautifully. I'm going to pull a little flour here so we can get it good and coated, because we don't want it to be a sticky hot mess. And if it is a sticky mess, you just maybe you need a little more flour on your hands or a little more flour on your board. So don't shy away from the flour, because you need it. Now look, I have got this to the point that all those herbs and seasonings, they're all inside and they're all mixed up. And it smells amazing. So I'm going to go at this with my rolling pin, and I'm going to roll it out to the thickness that I want. Just like this. Move my hands out of the way. And then again, I'm just going to go at it with my little cutter, and I'm going to cut some circles. Going to be great. Now see, there was no special, I didn't do anything special. I just sprinkled some herbs in. You could sprinkle along with the herbs. You could do Parmesan cheese. You could sprinkle cheddar cheese in here. You could put jalapeno pieces. You could put olives. Shoot, if you did it with feta cheese and some olives, hot dog, that'd be good. That'd be like, well, be like Greek bread. This is going to be great because of my Greek seasoning. It's just endless, the possibilities. So go with what you want to do. That's my theory. Go with what makes you happy. All right, so I've already sprayed this one. Now, I'm going in with 6 in this pan too. 2, 2, and 2. Now, just to be a little different, I'm going to spray the tops of these just with a little bit of water. And then I'm going to take some sesame seeds. No, these aren't sesame seeds. This is poppy seeds. But you could use sesame if you wanted to. I just happen to have poppy seeds. And I'm going to take this. I'm going on the top with these poppy seeds. Look how easy peasy, y'all. Just goes just like that. You can be pretty generous because they don't have a whole lot of taste, but they have a lot of texture. And that's what we want. How easy is that? So I'm just going to keep going, cutting out a few more of these, getting everything ready to go into the proofer because these are going to have to rise probably an hour. But once they're risen, they're going to go into the oven and they're going to be ridiculous. I promise I'll be right back. So it's been an hour since these things went into the proof box. And they have definitely doubled in size. You can see they're not overflowing from these pans, but they have definitely puffed up. And this is exactly what we're looking for. I'm excited. I have my oven preheated. It's at 375 on convection. Now, if you don't have a convection oven, it's not a problem. I just happen to have one, and so I can use that to my advantage. When you're cooking with convection, that just means that there's a fan blowing hot air around. And in a regular standard oven, it's just heating, and it's just hot. But there's no air current or movement. So I can cook at 375 for probably 20 to 25 minutes for these. And they should be golden brown by that time. Like I said, if you don't have a convection oven, you might want to just start yours out at 350 and see what happens at maybe 25 minutes. You don't want to really start out at 375 in a regular oven because, well, they might have a tendency to burn before they're done in the middle. So anyway, these are looking perfect. I'm going to get the oven packed full and we're going to bake bread. Oh, and look, my husband brought me some flowers because tomorrow's my birthday and I just had to show them off. I'm spoiled. Whatever. All right, here goes. Cute little pan going in. These, I'm looking forward to trying those because those are going to be ridiculous. They have all those herbs and spices going on. I'm excited. Let's see how many I can fit in here. Can I fit you in there? You don't want to go. What about you? Oh, that works. Look, okay. So I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes. And hopefully, we're going to have the most beautiful creation you've ever seen. Or at least the most beautiful creation of yeast rolls you've ever seen. How's that? I'll be back in a minute. Holy moly, y'all. I wish I had smell-o-vision. It smells incredible in this kitchen right now. That bread alone would be enough to make anybody just go crazy, but those herbs are smelling too. It's kind of a mix between pizza and it's just ridiculous. I don't even have to say anything else. It's been, I put these in for 25 minutes and I've checked them and they're brown. So I think they're ready. Even though we've got at least 7 minutes left on the timer, I'm going to pull a pan out and we're going to check them because the last thing we want is to burn our beautiful rolls. Okay, look at that. They are brown and lovely. Here's the ones, look, the poppy seed ones. Aren't those lovely? And here, the one that I put the herbs on top with the salt. shut the front door. That's ridiculous. I'm just telling y'all. This is an easy thing to do to impress. Well, they need a little more time, I think. I'm going to let them go a minute. But let me check these boys. I think they're done. Look. Keep baking. But I'll throw the rest in a minute. Y'all, these are beautiful. Look. They have puffed up. Yay! All right. So I'm going to try a plain one first because, well, you know. So pulling it out of the pan. It's getting nice and toasty on the bottom. And look, it's the cutest little thing. And I'm breaking it apart. And the smoke just comes out. And look at all those pillowy pockets of yummy goodness. It smells just like a Smith House roll. Mic drop. It's lovely. Nothing wrong with that. I'm telling you. It is pillowy, yummy goodness. But we need some butter because, hello, who wouldn't want butter on their bread? All right, I'm going to put a little bit of butter on this. Because, well, I can. Shoot. Hold on. It's going in. Darn, that's good. Yum, yum, yum. Okay. These. Let's see what it looks like inside. Hello, Oscar. Now remember, they just come out of the oven. They're bloody hot. And I'm going to break it in half. See if I can break the top off. Oh, yeah, look. Look, look, look. I don't know if you can really see this. The herbs. You can see them. And it smells so good. Let me see what it tastes like. Just straight up plain. Here it goes. It's mighty fine. It is mighty, mighty fine, y'all. I am thrilled. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this. And you see that it's not difficult. It just is a process. And if you're willing to, devote the time to it, you're going to be able to turn out beautiful rolls just like this. You'll impress your family. You'll impress your friends. Heck, you're even going to impress yourself because, it's not magic. It's just a little work and a little due diligence. And you can do it. You can do it, I promise. And I hope you do. And I hope you come visit me at Jamie Teach Me to Cook. That's where the recipe is going to be posted on my blog. And I'll have some pictures as well. And I hope you come see me at Jamie Teach Me to Cook over on Facebook, as well as at Instagram and on Pinterest, because I'm just all over the place. And it thrills me every time I see a new follower or if somebody sends me a message. Because I love hearing from you, honestly, I do. It makes my day. I hope that you send me a picture if you try to make these, because I want to see what you turn out in your kitchen. That would thrill my heart. So, with that said, I'm just going to stand here and bake some more bread. Might take one to Brad. And happy early birthday to me. Bye, y'all. I appreciate you.